What's happening? Okay, this is the wrong microphone, but we'll stay with it. We'll stay with it. Anyway, welcome aboard, everybody. How are we doing? I need to make sure that we can get everything done right. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, welcome. Thank you, Patrick Magner, for the super chat. Right as we start, Lemon character moving his head from left to right with his mouth wide open and red hearts in his eyes. I hear you, buddy. I hear you. All right, let's introduce folks. ABQ, El Señor Michael Rudden from Brooklyn, New York is in the house. We also have Meow, Patrick Magner in the house. Bruce Pollard watching from Facebook in the house and Kingwood, Texas. Patrick from Houston, Texas. We also have Paul Fleming from Powder Springs in Georgia. We also have Lee the Bearcat from Austin, Texas. Eric Hayes from Kingwood, Tuscaloosa. I'm testing my memory, people. I'm testing my memory. We also have in the house, let's see, I'm scrolling. Okay, here we go. We also have Sandra Dingler is in the house. Nan B. Hey, Nan B, how you doing? I haven't heard from you in a while. Marge KJ is in the house. Jeannie Adams is in the house. And we also have Marianne Odifel. Marge KJ. I like to call people out because if you are here and I can get to you in good time, I will. Fem K, welcome aboard. L. Win Hudson, welcome aboard. Bada Bada Fitante, my sister. Love you too, girl. You know, her husband was my idol before he left us, but he left a legacy. Let me just tell you guys that he left a legacy. Great union guy. All right. We also have Diane Steiner, Margaret Lopez, Margaret Ryan. Good afternoon, Margaret. Kathy Ray. Margaret, you know, we always miss the first few. Anyway, I got a program, a show for you, but let me just warn you guys. I am not sure what happened in the beginning there with the sound. So anytime I see something like that, I'm concerned that the system may be a bit flaky. You know, maybe I got something up in there. So here is the deal. If we crash out, we will be back in. But while, let me go ahead and set a few parameters up here since I'm using the wrong mic. I got to go ahead and do some remapping, I think. As far as our stories are concerned, I have about 5 videos to show you, and you guys are going to like these. You guys are going to like what we're going to talk about because I'm going to give some context to a whole lot of stuff that was discussed on MSNBC today. Again, we give context to a lot of stuff, and that's what we're going to do here. All right, I'm mapping all these things in that have to be remapped with this new microphone. Let's see, where is this other one? Bear with me, guys. We're going to get started in a minute. I just have to make sure that our maps are correct. And I think that map is correct now. Okay, if I get into trouble, you know what. Anyhow, how's everybody doing? Let's see. How's everybody doing? We have Lee Bearcat says, is this true? California legislatures are set to hear plans to take farmland held by white owners and redistribute it to minorities in an aim to help rebuild stolen wealth. Wow. Look, I don't have any information about that at all. I mean, that sounds kind of iffy to me. It sounds very iffy. Sounds like what you guys are trying to, it sounds to me like the lie that they tried to do with what was occurring in South Africa. It sounds like the lie is what they did in Guatemala when they told the fruit company, look, you have bought up on the cheap a ton of land that belonged to the Guatemalans. And what we want to do is buy that land back from you so that our people would be able to live in their own country. So I don't know that. But what I'm saying is be careful of how you hear things, because a lot of times it doesn't come close to what the reality is. Nobody wants to be unfair to anybody whatsoever. None whatsoever. All right. I hear you about that IO thing, Michael Rudden. All right. What else have we got here before I get started? What else have we got here? Michael says, just give airtime to Lee the Bearcat pushing a conspiracy theory source on Daily. Oh, is that where it came from? Daily Mail. Well, you know, the thing about it, Michael, is there are times that I would say something because there would be people in the chat that see that and say, oh, my God, you know what I heard on Egberto's program? And I just kind of want to clarify it a little bit, not to spend a lot of time on it. All right. Anyway, as you know, yesterday, the billionaires visited Donald Trump. They visited Donald Trump at the White House. They had a great dinner. Billionaires included Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, all these guys, the guy who runs Apple. I mean, they are there. And I tell you what, I could swear it was his cabinet. I could swear these were people owned by Donald Trump the way his cabinet owns him. But I tell you what, why not just listen to what's going on? 55 seconds, folks. 55 seconds. Check this out.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's a great honor to work here at the White House and to work for you.
I truly, every time I'm here or in your presence, I'm so grateful. So thank you. It's like, I can't believe it every time.
Well, Mr. President, it's such an honor to be here and the incredible work that your administration has done.
Thank you for incredible leadership, including getting this group together.
It's incredible to be among everyone here, particularly you and the First Lady.
Thank you for being such a pro-business, pro-innovation president.
And I think this is the most exciting time in America ever, at least that I remember. So thank you. Thank you for everything you're doing.
Much like we always see at his cabinet meetings, this time it was a who's who of tech leaders last night at the White House, lavishing praise on President Trump.
Did anybody feel as sick as I did? Did anybody look? We like to praise billionaires as if these are special people, right? We praise them. And we have a tendency to want to look up to these people. And I think Trump has done so much good for this country in this regards. And I want you guys to listen to me very, very well. I love me some Trump. That's a lie. That's a lie. You know what I mean, though. But what Trump did is he took the scab off of a lot of ills that continue to afflict America, right? He allowed people to be themselves on the bad side. But he also allowed us to see who are strong and who are not. And what we realize out of this entire thing is that billionaires, like most of us, well, like most activists know, are just paper tigers. They hide behind the monies that they can pay somebody to make them look tough or make them look smart or make them look all those things. Because do remember, billionaires create nothing. They were blessed to be in a capitalist system that affords them the ability to manipulate capital. And since from birth we are indoctrinated that somehow having capital makes you above the fray, we then work for these billionaires that are paper tigers. But then you get a thug that come along that is out in the open, and you see what they're made of. Think about this. If these guys were strong, with all the billions that they have, they could have taken down the president. They could have helped put somebody in office that actually believes in capitalism, believes in free markets. They could have done that. But they are chickens. Here's, I just as I was coming on, a cut came on where this lady said there was an open mic after Zuckerberg spoke. And here's what Zuckerberg said in the open mic. The president looked at Zuckerberg and said, "Hey, man, how much are you going to spend? How much are you going to spend, man?" And Zuckerberg says, over the next few years in America, we are going to spend $600 billion. And after he gave his little 15-second speech, he looks at the president and said, you kind of caught me off guard. I didn't know what you wanted me to say. Zuckerberg turned into the president and saying, hey man, I don't know what you wanted me to say, so I kind of came up with that. You know what I mean, Mr. President? These are the guys who are running our economy. These are the guys who have bought the AI engineers. These are the guys who have bought the guys who make electric cars. These are the guys who bought people. Remember antiseptic slavery? All the engineers. I used to be an antiseptic slave myself, so I'm not saying anything, out of, malice or anything like that. Folks, do you get it? Our billionaires are nothing but paper tigers. It's time for us to take back what's ours. Their billions wasn't earned by them. Their billions was created by a system working on autopilot that if you play that game and if you are invited into that game, you can get into that game and control the rest. We can break that paradigm. We can actually break that paradigm by electing the Mamdanis of the world, by electing the AOCs of the world, by electing the Ilhan Omars of the world, by electing the Rashida Tlaibs of the world, by electing the Barners of the world, by electing the Maxwells of the world. I mean, there are by and Lee from the world. There are choices of people who care about you. There are politicians that are running in every election. Let's go to Maine. Let's go to all these politicians that care about you. Forgetting the rhetoric, you have the power to do this. These punks that you see going out to the president and sycophancying the president. You, everybody listening to me right now, have more power than those punks. If you work collectively, of course, if you work collectively. But let's back up a second. As the sycophancy we'll tax it away from them. And if they can't, again, let's back up. Lee Grant says, how will you confiscate the dollars from the billionaires? You tax it away from them. You tax it away from them. They taxed us for it. We don't like to look at it that way. The private sector don't tax, right? No, the private sector does tax all of us. When they bring in all that money and we don't get the returns on our spoils, that's a tax on us. Remember that. But it's not the government taxing us. We didn't vote for that tax. The billionaires are putting a tax on us by using our what called excess labor. The labor that we perform, the inventions that we create, the innovation that we create that is not paid for, they hold on to. Capital gains, it's ours, but they benefit from it. We don't. When you start asserting your worth, then these paper tigers will fall into place. But right now, they think the way the paper tigers are thinking, the billionaires. I mean, it was sick to see even Bill Gates sucking on his you-know-what. Even Bill Gates, who I thought had a modicum of respectability. I didn't see his wife there. She's another billionaire. But she's a billionaire doing good things. I'm glad I didn't see her there, because if I saw her there, I would be really, really concerned. I would be really concerned. But anyway, they've been praising Donald Trump for how great he is. Well, how great is Donald Trump? Donald Trump came in with an economy on fire. Jobs going up, inflation coming down, people employed. Yes, of course. He lied about what was really happening, but the numbers says it all. Just look at the charts. But his charts look quite a bit different, because Donald Trump is nothing but a failure. Donald Trump doesn't know how to run an economy. So I want to play this for you, and then we'll talk a little bit on the other side.
Walk me through who was not getting hired or who was losing their job the last month.
Yeah, so it's important to remember that this is not even, that when we talk about these job losses, it's not across the board. So what I did when the numbers came out is I actually went back and looked not only at the shift of the past month, but since January, since Donald Trump came into office. And there are some clear winners and losers. White men, Black women, for example, have lost employment since the beginning of the year. That's not just month over month. That's since Donald Trump took office. There are fewer of each of those groups.
Laid off.
Yes, potentially, or retiring, or, there are lots of ways in which they might have left the workforce. One of the most fascinating aspects of it is I also looked at industries. And so we see, for example, the manufacturing, which was down last month. Manufacturing has lost jobs since January. And to the point about tariffs, like this was supposed to be the argument, right? The argument was, it was one of like 9 arguments, but one of the arguments was these tariffs will bring manufacturing back to America. And it hasn't. It simply hasn't done that. We see, of course, the government jobs are down, largely driven by federal government cuts. So all of these factors, it's not even throughout the economy, but you can consistently see how this points back to Donald Trump's policies.
And manufacturing is interesting, Justin, because when we were talking about these tariffs and Donald Trump's desire to bring manufacturing home, one of the things that we pointed to was the tariffs that he put into place during his last administration and how they did not lead to more manufacturing jobs. Of steel tariffs, I believe, how they led to, I think, 70, was it million or 1,000? What was the number? Jobs lost.
We're going to go with 1,000 there, Katie.
We're going to go with 1,000. Million's a bit too high. 1,000 jobs lost because of Donald Trump's steel tariffs in the first administration.
Yeah. So look, it's easy to be mad about tariffs. And there's those of us who argue they're a bad idea. There are reasonable arguments they're a good idea. But what there's no argument about is incompetent, incoherent tariffs are always and everywhere a terrible idea. He started the trade war with no way to win it. Page 1 of the tariff handbook says don't put tariffs on inputs. And so then he goes and puts tariffs on steel and aluminium, which I believe is pronounced aluminum, which are used by factories everywhere. And so what he's done is he's helped these very tiny slivers of the economy. Pittsburgh and the Steelers, they're feeling very good about this. The rest of the economy uses steel. They're doing much worse. Look, the ask from Trump was we all should suffer a little bit to bring back manufacturing, but because the policies are incompetent and incoherent, even manufacturing got hurt along the way.
Where are we at in inflation? Are we tackling it? Is it okay?
So the cost of living is still, I say, issue number 1 for American families. It really is, more than the job situation. I think that could be something that goes to the forefront in months ahead, but prices are still moving up. I mean, you look over the past 5 years, food prices are up 26%. Auto insurance prices are up 30 or 40%. Housing costs are up 50%. I mean, it's been a really tough 5 years for the American people. And you've got an inflation rate that is still higher than the Fed would like to see. That's why they haven't been cutting interest rates until now. But now the balance is starting to be like, the job market could be tipping. Now we're concerned about inflation, but we're going to have to cut.
So what happens when you have bad jobs numbers and bad inflation?
It's bad.
Yeah. From a political standpoint, not only is Donald Trump now overseeing an economy in which people are frustrated and in which prices are going up, but he also is the guy who said that wouldn't happen, right? Which is not where Biden was, right? Yes, and yeah, of course, right. Donald Trump says lots of things, and the hypocrisy of Donald Trump. It's going to
end the war in Ukraine
exactly,
today.
Right. Yes. However, people weren't voting for Donald Trump as much on Ukraine as they were on inflation. And I think that particularly for a lot of young people or new people who are just sort of came onto the Trump coalition last year, this will be a much.
Justin, we were headed toward a soft landing after COVID. Did we ever achieve that soft landing? Are we in perpetual landing mode?
No, we got trouble right around the corner right now. Inflation never quite made it all the way. It looks like it might be about to take off again precisely because of the White House's policy choices. And unemployment's been slowly rising over the past few months. And certainly job growth is slowing. And there's a whole lot of reasons to worry that if the previous miracle was inflation fell with no change in unemployment, we're now about to get unemployment rising and inflation rising. A whole different story.
You know, the FAFO kind of thing comes to mind, that the people that elected Donald Trump, except for the part with Black women, but for the people who elected Donald Trump, he has screwed them once again. He has screwed them once again. They're the ones whose jobs are being replaced. And of course, the billionaires are happy. They got their tax cuts. I mean, what people never understood about tariffs, or his people, not people, his people never understood of tariffs. It hits them twice, right? Because once it hits them in that it is a tax that affects every lowly person that goes to a Walmart and all these places where expensive tariffs are on, Walmart, Target, all these places where MAGA shops, he's taking a tax from them. So when he says, I collected $20 billion this month, he's saying, MAGA, I increased your taxes by $20 billion. That's what I did. But it hits them another way, right? The truth of the matter is this. You want tariffs to raise prices. That's why the economist said you don't want tariffs on inputs, meaning on raw material that manufacturers use to build stuff. You don't want tariffs on those things at all. You want those things to come in as cheaply as possible so that then you can add value and still keep it in a range that people can buy. It's called thinking, critical thinking. But Donald Trump just says on a country, he puts a tariff. Doesn't make any sense. Another thing you don't want to put tariffs on is like bananas. We don't grow bananas in large quantities, except in maybe Hawaii and some parts of the southern states. So you don't want to have tariffs on bananas. You don't want to have tariffs on things you don't produce or can't produce. Because why? Because if you have the tariff, there's no incentive for that increase in price to create local manufacture, local growth. You do want tariffs at times on things like steel and end product that if you bring the raw material, well, we have the raw material, iron ore, etc., you can add value to that and sell that steel on the market. These are simple economic not theories, but concepts that Donald Trump, who supposedly went to a good business school, cannot grasp. But we always knew he was rather dumb. Now, so like I said, we want prices to be higher on things that we put tariffs on to generate a result that we build factories to get the prices to compete with those prices, those new prices that aren't subsidized, let's say by China or other countries. But he doesn't understand that. He doesn't know that. It's Trump. Remember, this is Trump. And of course, again, it is affecting his own. But you know what else is interesting, though? Not only is he affecting his own with pricing, etc., he's also affecting it with the policies he's passing for whom, again, for business. As you remember, when airlines for a long time would take advantage of people, they care about their bottom line. If they put people on a flight and figure out somehow that flight they can't make money, or somehow they can't put those airplanes around in such a manner to justify that flight, they may just cancel the flight. And you may be left holding the bag where you can get a ticket whenever we can get a place to put your ticket on or whatever. And many a times you don't even get reimbursed, right? So under Biden, we actually got something of a traveler's bill of rights, right? Airline traveler's bill of rights kind of thing like that. And it made the airline industry have to follow the rules. It made them have to be humane to their customers. In other words, not have a customer trying to get to Houston while they're stuck in New York, and the airline, we can't get to Houston right now, and we'll just, they force rules on. Well, Donald Trump comes into power. What does he do? Well, he becomes Donald Trump.
The Trump administration revealed it is planning to roll back a cash compensation plan for all of us who might experience flight delays caused by airline carriers. The plan, which was proposed by the U.S. Department of Transportation under then President Biden last December, and follows similar rules already in place by several other countries. NBC senior correspondent Tom Costello is joining us now. Tom, can you remind us of what this compensation plan was, and do we know why the Trump administration wants to drop it?
Yeah, so this, as you mentioned, was last December. The Biden administration proposed a new rule that would require airlines to compensate passengers for flight delays of at least 3 hours when caused by airlines, and long delays could lead to $775 in compensation. But the airlines immediately pushed back, arguing the rules amounted to government overreach, driving prices higher for passengers, and the proposed rule never took effect, and now it appears, in fact, it's dead. The Trump DOT is also looking at doing away with Biden rules that we covered extensively here on NBC and MS, which required airlines to be more transparent in their ticket prices. In other words, no hidden fees. The Trump administration also looking at what is the definition for a canceled flight, and when are the airlines required to compensate passengers? In 2024, the Biden administration announced plans to require automatic refunds for passengers if an airline cancels or significantly delays a flight, if the passenger does not accept, for example, alternative transportation or travel credits. Most airlines have already agreed to compensate passengers for meals and hotels during very lengthy delays or cancellations. The airline lobbying group is saying that it is encouraged by this DOT reviewing unnecessary, in their words, and burdensome regulations that exceed the authority of Congress that Congress gave to the DOT. The airlines are arguing, listen, they say we already take care of our passengers, and these rules have really become excessive. And as you mentioned, by the way, many European countries have laws requiring compensation for a delayed flight. Airlines are, as you can see, trying to convince the DOT that the Biden DOT went too far.
Oh, really? The Biden's BOT went too far. Oh, my God. Just because, the corporations never take a loss. Everybody always talk about they take risks. These guys don't take risks, and that's why you need regulations. They don't take risks, right? They just need to make sure that every single line item that they have, they try to get a plus mark on it. And again, who pays for this? Who flies Spirit? Who flies Southwest? Who flies these airlines? MAGA, we're talking to you. So your Führer is doing so little to support you after he gets into office. And have you learned your lesson yet? That he isn't for you? That corporations get the break? Where is the break for the lady who needs her SNAP? Where is the break for the mother who really wants to go out there and work, but she cannot afford to put her child in childcare because it's not working right? Think about it, folks. This is what you've done. I mean, look, my MAGA brothers and sisters, you guys are going to have to atone, man. Y'all have really put this country on a path of destruction. It's good that it's reversible, though. It's good that it's reversible if we start doing our work in November. Patrick said something. He said 40% of California farmland is expected to be bought, stolen by investment groups in the next 10 years. But Lee is angry about a hoax that poor people might be given some land. It's amazing that you said that, right? Because we talk about the homeless problems. It does. A billionaire is a billionaire is a billionaire. They haven't earned anything. They actually have pretty much every single one of them, even the ones that we consider good, they're enslavers. Even the ones we consider good. I mean, but all of this is occurring on autopilot, right? So, I mean, they are just following the rules of the system. It's not that they're inherently bad. We just inherently have a bad system. Or rather, we have a system that is inherently bad. So, I mean, this is not personal. This is just a system that is designed to extract and abuse. So Patrick is absolutely right. We have one of the famous directors went on a base in Atlanta. Can't remember his name right now. You guys know who make the Madeira series. And he took that base, and that base is in a Black neighborhood that is in decline. And I had a friend of mine who's a reporter out there, independent reporter as well, in Atlanta. And she called me up and said, Egberto, you would not believe what this guy is doing. And I'm like, what? He bought up this property. He promised to build low-income housing, etc., out there. But guess what he did? He started to enclose, fenced off this whole studio. And people on the outside, because the studio is there, Tyler Perry, exactly. Because the studio is there, we go ahead and all these investors buy up all these homes that these black folks have had in their families for decades, if not centuries. They buy it up on the cheap, not to do anything with it immediately, just to buy it up and have it stand there, because as long as the longer it stands there, the more it eventually appreciates in value, and then they take it down. So we have all these, as Brother Patrick has been talking about, all these investment bankers going around to all these neighborhoods and buying up all these old houses and taking them off the market. Houses that would be economical for us to have government programs that could say, let's give subsidized housing that are already there. Let's give these subsidized housing to people that need a hand up. And it'll do two things. It'll keep the community vibrant because people will be living in the homes as opposed to having all these squatter lands where, it's boarded up, etc. It brings down the neighborhood, which is what the investors want, right? The investors start to buy up homes, board it up, and the community starts to lose its character, and the values keep falling for a while. And as they're falling, the investor keeps buying up more homes. Every time he buys a house and shutters it, the value of the homes in that area goes down, and he buys up more and he buys up more. And then when he's had enough, bingo, gentrification. And now those homes, because of their location, now have value, and the city starts. Look, it's a racket. Look, they're not doing anything wrong. They're not doing anything wrong. That is capitalism. That's what it was designed to do. No humanity, no social justice, none of that. The only thing that can give capitalism some modicum of humanity is we the people, government. But the truth of the matter is, what we need to do is just call it in and say we need free enterprise. Free enterprise with a strong social safety net. That is what we need. And I've explained that in a couple of other videos before. But anyhow, Donald Trump and his minions love to do something else, right? They like to tell their people, hey, you don't need to go to college, man. Go to a trade school. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with a trade school. I'm not saying there's not. We need plumbers. We need all of these. They have the same value as anybody else. So yeah, if you want to go to trade school, all of that is good. But what they have actually been doing is convincing people that going to college is actually bad. As if somehow going to college is a scarlet letter. But their kids are going to school, but they're not telling your MAGA folks that. Their kids are going to school. Their kids are going to Ivies. Their kids are doing all the things that are necessary to live a long, prosperous life. But they just think MAGA, the Trump and his minions, they think MAGA is scum. They think MAGA is dumb. So they give advice to MAGA. Don't go to college. Don't do that. So let's kind of examine what that really means. Let's examine what that means, and then I'll be back.
It's not just pumpkin spice in the air. It's pencils and textbooks, too, because back to school season is here. While many students might already have accepted the soaring cost of college tuition bills and all those added fees, some might still be wondering if the sky-high cost of education actually is worth the return on investment. To help us understand, the professor is joining us now, University of Michigan Economics and Public Policy Professor Justin Wolfers. So great to have you. And this is a perfect conversation for today because everyone's going back to school right now. College is getting so expensive. Justin, some might be asking, just how important is it to go to college at this point in 2025?
Well, Anna, I was just back in the classroom and met 500 bright-eyed, brilliant young Michigan undergrads, and it filled me with energy. But they're there for a reason, which is they want to figure out whether this is going to give them a better life. And if you look at the data on this, how much do college graduates earn relative to those who just went to high school? The differential, and that's the graph you're showing right now, is just absolutely enormous. College graduates are earning about 80% more than those who just finished high school. And for the parents of high schoolers, keep them in school because high school graduates earn a whole lot more. And if you're thinking about going back to graduate school, let me tell you, there's a big economic payoff to that too.
Yeah, I mean, the numbers are staggering from $34,500 if you just have some, a little bit more if you're a high school graduate, $46,000 on average. But then look, it jumps to $87,000 if you have a bachelor's degree, all the way up to almost $200,000 if you have those graduate level of education degrees. We hear a lot about, recent college graduates struggling to find jobs. They might have a bachelor's or a master's degree. Some may think having a college education just isn't important anymore. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, actually, let's take the numbers you were just showing because they're quite extraordinary. If you add it up, the difference between going to college and not going to college, it adds more than $1 million to how much you're going to earn over a lifetime. So to the students who are watching right now, realize 4 years of college adds more than $1 million to your earnings. These are important years. It's not just that you're earning more as well. You're more likely to keep your job. The unemployment rate for recent college graduates has gone up a little bit, and that's caused a lot of concern. But realize that life is still so much better when you have more education. When unemployment rises, you see that it really hurts those who are less educated, those who didn't finish high school or those with only a high school degree. You can think about a college degree as inoculating you against unemployment. It will be hard sometimes to find a job, but it's still so much easier when you do have that college degree in hand. You can see right now the unemployment rate for folks with a degree is only 2.5%.
So, okay, we'll give it to you. College graduates might earn more. We'll have lower unemployment rates. But how do we know that it is that college education that's actually causing higher wages? Economists are always telling us correlation doesn't necessarily mean causation. Maybe the people who go to college were always going to be successful or more successful anyway.
I love this, Anna. You sound so much like an economist right now. Let's take the data and really dig in and see if we can make sense of it. And so generations of labor economists, and I'm a labor economist, have spent time trying to unpack this idea. Is it correlation or is it causation? A couple of brilliant economists went off to Twinsville and they interviewed a lot of twins. So people with the exact same genetics. And if there was one twin who went to college and another one who didn't, the twin who went to college earned more. You can look at kids who grow up near a college. They're more likely to go to college than kids who grow up far away from a college. Kids who grow up near a college end up being more likely to go to college. They end up earning more. You can look at things like school leaving laws. If school leaving laws force you to stay in school longer, you end up staying in school longer, and those folks end up earning more. You can look at what happens when we build new schools. When you build new schools, more people go to school, and the folks that have those opportunities end up earning more. So I think what we learn at the end of this is that going to school does, in fact, cause you to go on and earn more, and quite a bit more. Yeah,
it's also fascinating to read here on this graphic that growing up near a university also leads to higher earnings. Again, just being within that educational environment makes such a difference. And of course, it's not always about the bottom line, right? Professor, are there other tangible benefits to getting that higher education that maybe don't come from a paycheck?
Yeah, so you might say, you economists, you're too focused on money. There's more to life than that. And I'm going to agree with you. And so there's been very careful studies looking at other things that education causes that does. And it turns out folks who go to college are more likely to live longer. They have healthier lives and longer lives. It turns out folks who go to college have more stable marriages. And in fact, they're marrying at higher rates as well. We probably don't need a study for this, but many of us have many of our best friends in life came from our college years, and they're also our professional networks. And I think the thing that really brings it home for me, a very good friend of mine wrote this study. In fact, he looked at happiness levels. And it turns out that folks who were forced to stay in school a little longer, they may not have liked it at the time, but they went on to be both wealthier and happier. So it's not just about the money. You end up healthier, wealthier, and happier the more time you spend in school.
But Trump won't tell MAGA that. They're out there with Fao and all these other guys out there trying to tell folks, you don't need to go to college. You don't need to go to college. Those elitists, those this. Look, here's the thing. Here is the thing. Bill Gates didn't finish college. He did very well, right? College, I had this discussion with my daughter. Some people are self-starters. They don't need college, but it would be as if they went to college because of their self-starting kind of a way. College for me was like a stepping stone. I've always been inventing stuff and doing stuff. Even back in Panama, I remember taking my class in third grade to the little creek with a motor that I did with a shoebox to show it could go against the current, right? But not everybody is that curious, or not everybody is that nerdy like I used to be, or like many of my friends are. Some people need the structure to put them there, right? So some people need college, some people don't. Some people benefit from having college even as they are self-starters, because college, I always say that what college gave me as an engineer was methodologies. In other words, it allowed me to do some better focusing than being all over the place. I used to be doing electrical stuff, almost killed myself creating a rocket with sulfur and some other stuff. I mean, it kind of focused you in knowing enough that you don't kill yourself, if you will. But anyhow, so that's important. But what MAGA is doing, what Trump is doing to MAGA is giving them an excuse to fail. And I'm not saying college is equivalent to success. It's not. But college, as he shows, in the aggregate, you do better with college, and they're trying to make their people not go to college. And we know one of the reasons why. As Trump said, I like stupid people. In other words, he wants to make sure that his people are not very aware of much. And that shows. I mean, if you listen to some of the people that he talks about, you actually can see it. All right, look, I gotta play this piece. I want to end the show today with a Medicare thing. Like I said, I want to talk about Medicare just about every day, especially since we're in this time. Folks, do not sign up for Medicare Advantage unless you absolutely have to, meaning you can't afford a Medigap program. But please, save our country. Don't go get Medicare Advantage. I want to talk a little bit about Medicare. First of all, this is a time where if you are on mainstream media, if you are on TikTok, Instagram, Telegram, if you are on broadcast media, cable media, this is a time that they start bombarding you with Medicare information and what to sign up for, etc. This is a time when that happens. And if you are on TikTok, and a lot of us are actual classes that you're being given on how to choose Medicare. And most of them that I've checked out thus far are frauds. They're just there to make it seem like they're educating you to move into Medicare Advantage. Before I get into my spiel today, I want to tell all of you that are listening to me right now, if you have the extra bucks in your pocket that you can afford to buy Medigap, in other words, get traditional Medicare, don't get Medicare Advantage, get Medicare, and you have a few dollars in your pocket to buy Medigap, that is what anybody who cares about their health would do.
And here is why. Only when you turn 65 and first get Medicare do you have the option to really get Medigap at the price everybody has to get Medigap at. In other words, if you let after 65 and if you were to go to Medicare Advantage and figure out that the plan that you have somehow disparate, it harms you. After 6 months, trying to get that Medigap portion that's going to take care of the 20% that Medicare traditional doesn't pay for, you will have to go through what's called the actuarial tables, which means that pre-existing conditions come into play, your age, whether you smoke, all these other things come into play. If you don't get Medigap right up front, that's a trick they have played on all of us. Our government run by the corporations have put that in there to sort of force you to stay on substandard Medicare Advantage plans. For those who have a Medicare Advantage plan that's working well for them, great for you, but know that you are still at risk when that particular plan hits a certain number. But so I want to start that way. Anybody, all of you turning 65 now, you are raw meat for the lions out there trying to take your money from the government. In other words, all those people are trying to get you signed into Medicare Advantage because the people who sell Medicare Advantage get a lot more money than selling you a Medigap program. They make zero for Medicare, but but when you get Medicare, they sell you a Medigap and they don't make as much money as they make for selling you a Medicare Advantage program, which ultimately stand a good chance of harming you. So please, if there's the only thing that you hear from me today is go into Medicare Advantage at your own peril. But here is the problem now. One of the things with Medicare Advantage is, remember, the sole purpose of Medicare Advantage is to make a profit for the companies who sell it. In fact, many companies who sell Medicare Advantage have stopped selling Medigap programs altogether, have stopped selling other insurances altogether because Medicare Advantage is so profitable for them. It's profitable for them, but you know who pays, right? You do. Our tax dollars immediately transfer to those insurance companies selling the Medicare Advantage. And remember, there was a time they didn't want to insure old people. They cost too much. But now, because it's sanctioned by the government, they're just bleeding the money from the government from Medicare Advantage. So don't do that. Now, one of the big selling points that keep people on traditional Medicare is because there was very little pre-clearance. In other words, anytime a doctor saw fit that you needed a medicine, that you needed a procedure, that you needed something, there was no pre-authorization, meaning they have to go call some company to get you pre-authorized before they can do that service. They trusted the doctors, just like we trust the grocery store clerk. We trust all these other things. And later on, if we find there's fraud there, we let them pay for the fraud. But we don't go into the assumption that they are fraudulent. We go into the assumption, just like you pay your taxes, people can cheat on their taxes, and the IRS makes the assumption that you're honest. And every so often they audit people that they figure may be getting off, and then that's how they recover their money. That is the efficient way to run government programs. You give a lot, and you test the waters for fraud, and then you condemn the fraud, and you make an example out of those committing the fraud. But now Donald Trump is implementing a test case in several states. The test that they're doing is to have traditional Medicare behave like Medicare Advantage, where they test pre-authorization. Let me just give you some numbers, though. Medicare traditional already does some pre-authorizations for very expensive type things, right? And it's called for things that are not very emergency at the time, etc. They have a few pre-authorizations in Medicare, and they get it 98% right. 98% right, meaning 2% error rate, where when you go back and protest, it's like, oh, I guess we probably really needed to give you that. Medicare Advantage has not a 2% failure, a 20-odd% failure. In other words, when they deny you service and you protest, 80% of the times you actually get the service. But by then, you're sicker, you're unhealthier, all of that becomes true. But it's even worse. That's 80% of the people who actually have the nerve to protest the denial. And a lot of people don't protest their denial of service or medicine. So it is likely much higher. These private companies are denying services. But here's what happens, brothers and sisters. Trump is high. We have a part of government, the MAC, that actually does these pre-authorizations, right? And they're 98% accurate. But it's government employees. Now, Donald Trump wants to give it to the same people who administer it for Medicare Advantage. He wants to give these people a contract, traditional Medicare, give them a contract to decide whether a service is valid or not. People that have a 20-something% failure rate. But it gets worse. They are paid based on how much they deny you services. Just like our regular private insurance seller, they make the most money from denying the most services. So if they deny you a big cut, they make a big cut of what was denied you. All these things are happening behind the scenes. Did you see that on mainstream media highlighted in any major way? No. But is it going to affect all of you and affect you to the core? Yes. It's right now a pilot program. So most of Americans won't get touched. Those of you that are on Medicare Advantage won't get touched. But eventually, if Donald Trump and his sycophants stay in power, that will become law. And as John said earlier, Egberto, what they're doing is manufacturing my death. So you're informed. You know other reasons why you must make sensible and why you must elect people that are sensible, moral, ethical, and humane. This is not a joke. This is not about MAGA versus this, because MAGAs are going to be screwed just as much as anybody else. Hug your MAGA. Look, we, like I mentioned earlier to John and to Tag, what we have to be is an educated voter, an educated population. We've lost that. When you hear all this anti-woke, anti-critical thinking, all these things, they need you. The Powell memo said it. They wanted to infiltrate they have now done it. They've infiltrated your churches. They've infiltrated your schools. They've infiltrated the media. They have finito complete. They have done it. And just voices like what we are doing here and other independent voices that are not dependent on the plutocracy are here informing. As John says, I watch the news and my God, I can't believe the stupidity that's coming out of the questioner's mouth who are running the mainstream media. And yes, you're right. It's the most silly questions. I sit down at my desk here with 3 screens going and like, are they going to ask this? Are they going to ask that? They're not there for you. They're there to keep the facade on a failed economic system.
All of our country's problems, from polarization to ignorance on domestic and international issues to a complete misunderstanding of our economic and healthcare systems, are a direct result of a derelict mainstream media. Yes, it's a direct result of a derelict mainstream media. Because, and look, like I get a lot of my clips from MSNBC, all right? But what I try to do is give it more context. So let me give an example. We spoke about the airplane stuff today. What happens is they don't go out there and say the reason Donald Trump is taking away these regulations from the airlines is because he's actually for corporations and he will take money out of the mouth of the poor. He doesn't care about the poor. They can't say that. We can. And that is what we are saying is more true than what the mainstream media is saying, but they are doing the job of bringing that story. When they talk about schools, they can't say that the reason why the Republicans are pushing no school is that they want dummies. They can't quite say that, but we know that that is what Donald Trump has said in various spaces, but they don't want to look partisan. When we talk about the job market, they can't come out and say, well, it is wrong because the methodologies and the policy positions of conservatives are not sustainable. They can't say capitalism is a fraud. They can't say that. But everything that we've spoken here, and there's nobody that has ever been able to call in and say, oh, no, what you're saying is incorrect. Because it's not my words. It's not my analysis. It's the analysis of anybody or everybody who knows math. And when we say that capitalism is based on a formula that's unsustainable, I'm sorry. The pie, when you put the pie and you put that formula in there, it just doesn't compute. Well, it does compute. It just turns us all into indentured servants. But again, a lot of folks, it is so hard to indoctrinate people, but that's our job. And that's what I intend to do for the rest of my period on this ground. Anyway, folks, I'd like to ask you to please, those who have the wherewithal to do so, please support our programming. Please support all the work that we do. Please support we're not just here on KPFT 90.1 and here at, online. We're also on TikTok, Instagram, everywhere. We also write articles. We also, and not only for my own Substack, but for a lot of other places, and also write books that are very, very, very informative on the issues that we talk about. So I ask you to become a part of the family. Please become a paid subscriber of our newsletter, which subsidizes everything that we do. And how can you do that? Go to politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. And put in that link in the chats, both chats. Go to politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. It's inexpensive to help us tell the truth. It's inexpensive to have us reach people. You don't need the big media corporations' money. We just need a few bucks that you say, I'm going to get you a coffee. And we can do a lot of work with that. I work for cheap. I built all of this network. Some of you have been to my place to see the studio that I've built. You know that it was built con estas manos. Lo hicimos todo con esto. To put it all together, to create a cohesion. So help us keep doing this work. politicsdoneright.com/newsletter is the way that you can help us continue to work. A lot of folks have come over from the mainstream media on Substack and, let's not go there. Anyway, please support us the best you can. politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. I hope you have a great weekend. We are going to be on, I think probably Sunday at 6:00, generally for paid subscribers, but I need to build up more paid subscribers. So I may keep it open a few more weeks longer, to everybody before we relegate the special session for our Sunday. For the Sunday session for our paid subscribers. So please, again, support us the best you can. Have a great weekend, but you'll be hearing from me over the weekend as well. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out. All of our country's problems, from polarization to ignorance on domestic and international issues to a complete misunderstanding of our economic and healthcare systems, are a direct result of a derelict mainstream media that too often bend over backwards to support corporate or bought politicians' wants as opposed to the people's needs for real information to make their lives better. Independent media is the only solution to inform truthfully and factually. Why? Because our loyalties are to you, the ones who fund us with small dollar contributions and subscriptions. Please consider supporting our independent media platforms by subscribing to our Egberto Off the Record newsletter at politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. Again, that is politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. It's an investment that pays incalculable dividends.